Joining us now, Senator Marco Rubio, who has been one of Donald Trump's most outspoken supporters throughout the campaign and was in attendance last night at the Trump campaign's watch party turned victory celebration. He's also the ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, good morning. It's nice to have you with us.
Good morning.
So let me just start with your reaction here. This was a sweeping victory for Donald Trump, for Republicans. What's your reaction, and how do you explain what we saw last night? You yourself had said you expected a closer race than this one.
Well, everybody did, right? I mean, that's what we certainly being told by pollsters. It's, and I think eventually we're going to learn our lesson here. But what I'm most impressed by is not just the size of the victory. I know the number's still growing, but the way Donald Trump won this election. He won it by fundamentally remaking the Republican Party, but I hope also revealing to people that for voters in the United States of America, their primary identity is not their ethnicity, it's not their race. It's what they do for a living. It's who they are in their daily lives. Well, I just saw a moment ago you had a segment on the Hispanic vote in all these different places. And, you know, every expert in the world was saying, well, there's no way Donald Trump can even be competitive because Bad Bunny is not supporting him and Jennifer Lopez and George Lopez, whoever come out against it. You know what I'm saying? These people are workers. These people are fathers and mothers, and they have children, and they own small businesses, and they're employees of a company who's sending a job overseas. They have to be appealed to as Americans because that's what they are. And when these migrants come and they're criminals in their own home country, say somebody comes here from El Salvador and they're a criminal, they're not criminals because they're migrants, they're criminals because they're criminals. And then they're coming here, what neighborhood are they going to? They're going to these Hispanic neighborhoods. That's what we heard in Pennsylvania. That's what you saw Osceola County put up a moment ago, which is an enormous community, a strong Puerto Rican presence. They're very concerned about the cost of living, the cost of groceries. And Donald Trump appealed to Americans as Americans, irrespective of your background or your customs or what music you listen to or how your last name is pronounced. This is more than just a realignment. I hope it's a realization that when you come to this country and you put your roots down here and you raise your children here, you become an American. And everything from our economy to our safety to our national security matter as much to you as they do to anybody else in this country.
Sir, do you think this is a permanent realignment for these voters, or do you think that this is unique to Donald Trump?
No, I don't believe in anything's permanent anymore because American politics moves so quickly and so rapidly. I saw again a moment ago, we're talking about Miami-Dade County. I mean, Miami-Dade County flipped from 2016 to in about 8 years, this dramatic turn. So nothing is permanent. I think as long as, let me put it to you this way. From now on, anybody who's running, at least for the foreseeable future, and says, I'm going to put the priorities of Americans first, I am going to ensure that our laws are enforced when it comes to immigration. We're not going to be anti-immigrant, but we're going to be anti-illegal immigration and chaos. And we're going to try to keep America out of wars. We're entering into an era of pragmatic foreign policy in which the world is rapidly changing. Adversaries are uniting in North Korea, Iran, China, Russia, increasingly coordinating. It's going to require us to be very pragmatic and wise in how we invest overseas and what we do and how we approach things. I think that message is going to transcend traditional, ideological and partisan lines. And but 6 years from now, it may be the Democrat who's saying that. So I don't think any of us could just sit back and say that this is permanent. This is not a partisan realignment. It is an American realignment. And Donald Trump just happens to be the candidate over the last 10 years that's truly not just revealed it, but captured it and communicated it in a very unique way. But, I mean, it's incumbent upon those of us who are in office now to turn that into policy and ultimately to continue it as a movement. Otherwise, someone will learn from it and they'll adopt it.
Interesting. Sir, as we look forward here, are you interested in a role in the next Trump administration?
Look, I always am interested in serving this country. I'm doing it now in the United States Senate. That's where I plan to be next week. And, beyond that, I'm not trying to play coy. It's just literally it's just a few hours removed from this election. Nobody actually going in knew exactly. We felt good about it, but nobody knew what was going to happen. I haven't had any such conversations with anybody in the Trump administration. And either way, I plan to work with them, whether it's in the Senate, which is an important place to be, or in some other capacity. If those conversations happen, we'll have them. But I certainly haven't talked to anybody about it. And I know, again, it sounds like, I hear people talk about it and mention that's just speculation right now. He's got a lot of talented people to pick from. But that's just a bridge I haven't even started to cross yet because I don't even know that bridge is there. But I know I'll be in the Senate, and that we're focused on.
So speaking of the Senate, who would you like to see as the next Senate Republican leader?
Well, we've got great people running. I mean, that's the truth. I like them all. Obviously, Rick Scott is my hometown, my home state senator. I think he would be a great majority leader. I know he's going to be running, and we'll see how it all plays out. But ultimately, I think whoever our next leader is has to be somebody who understands what happened here, what voters are telling us. They're not sending us up there. This is not a college football game where we celebrate because our team won. They're not sending us up there to celebrate. They're sending us up there to work and to try to turn, the message of this campaign into public policy for the benefit of all Americans. And that means, begin to secure our border, begin to rebuild our economy in a way where working people, hardworking everyday people can afford life, get ahead, do basic things that we used to take for granted, right? If you work hard, you should have a job that pays you enough to own a home and start a family and retire with dignity. We want to get back to an economy that makes that possible and a world that's increasingly dangerous. We wake up every single day to bad news after bad news. We've got to start taking this pretty seriously. When you've got North Korean troops embedded alongside Russians in the middle of Europe, when you've got the Chinese now habitually and routinely harassing not just Taiwan but the Philippines, you've got, and of course Iran that continues its ambitions, including trying to kill Donald Trump. I think we've got a very dangerous world that's going to require immediate attention.
So you mentioned obviously that there's going to be a new team in place coming in for the Trump administration. If you are part of the Senate, you'll have a say, of course, in confirming Donald Trump's nominees. He's obviously campaigned with Elon Musk extensively, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has recently expressed interest in a cabinet-level post. Do you think the Senate would confirm him to a cabinet-level post?
Well, I think the Senate's going to give great deference to a president that just won a stunning, what I think is an electoral college landslide when all is said and done, and a mandate. And he's being given a mandate to govern. And I think presidents who are given a mandate to govern deserve from the Senate the opportunity to surround themselves with people that are going to help them execute their policies. We have to understand the job of anybody that President-elect Trump puts in place. The job of those people is not to be a check on Donald Trump or to control him. It is to help carry out what the American people have sent them there to do, and sent them there to do in a pretty overwhelming fashion by modern standards. So I do think that that's important. Obviously, you have to be qualified and all these sorts of things. But beyond that, we have to ensure that he has a team around him that helps him execute his public policy, not undermine it or stand in the way of it. That's the same thing Joe Biden and every president we've ever had has wanted to be surrounded by is, people that are going to do a good job, but ultimately help carry out the policies that the people who elected that president sent them there to do.
So speaking of those policies, sir, would you be supportive of mass deportations if that's what incoming President Donald Trump were to do?
Well, first of all, the first mass deportation and the one that's most important is criminals. Yes, if you're a convicted murderer or a killer or some very dangerous individual that has a criminal record in another country or have committed crimes here, you need to be removed from the country. I don't care where you came from. You're here illegally. On top of the fact that you're here to commit crimes, you must be eliminated and removed immediately from the United States of America. That's without a doubt. Now, beyond that, I do think we have to have immigration laws, and they have to be enforced. That is the law of the country. The laws of our country today have been, if you are here unlawfully, you are to be detained through removal. Now, you can decide who to prioritize, and you can decide who you want to move into the front of the line in terms of enforcing that, but that has to be the law of the country. If you don't enforce that, then what you're basically telling people all over the world is come to America, you're not supposed to be here, but we'll let you in, and then you're going to get to stay. Look, we admit every year over 1 million people get green cards. They get U.S. residency. Over 1 million people a year. No other nation in the world is as generous as that. And I think everyone would admit there are things we need to do to modernize our legal immigration system. Right now, we simply can't do it because we have millions of people a year that are entering the country illegally. And some of them are very dangerous criminals from all over the world, not just from Latin America, from all over the world, many of whom we have no idea who they are. And then they come here and commit serious crimes and pose threats to the country. So I think that's where you start. That has to be the priority. But yes, I support enforcing the immigration laws of the United States, because if we don't, then we don't have immigration laws.
In the event that someone's crime is simply breaking the immigration law, you've made this distinction between people who commit crimes and those who come in illegally but don't have another crime on their record. In the event that they have children who are U.S. citizens, how, in your view, should the system treat those people? There have been some suggestions by Trump supporters that those children be deported with their parents. What do you think is the right way to deal with that?
Well, I mean, again, we talked about a list of prioritization. I'm not going to be making pronouncements here about what the Trump administration and how they're going to prioritize it. I can guarantee you their number one priority is going to be first and foremost people who are here illegally and unlawfully and have committed or are committing serious crimes or are a threat to the country. If you're a convicted murderer in El Salvador or a convicted murderer in Venezuela or whatever, and now you got into the United States unlawfully, you need to be removed. I don't care how many children you have in the United States. You're here unlawfully. You need to go because you're a threat to the country. And that's where you would prioritize, I believe, and you work your way down from that. But the most important thing is if you do not begin to enforce your immigration laws, if you do not send the message that there are people in this country unlawfully and they're going to be removed, then more people are going to come. It's all and entirely incentive-based. The reason why so many people have come is because rightfully they believe that if they come in, they will be admitted, they will be released, and they will be told, come back for a hearing, and that's not going to happen anytime in the near future. And they're going to get to stay. And that's acted as a magnet, as an incentive for people to come, and frankly, for people to be trafficked here. That's the piece that everyone's forgetting. They are paying some criminal organization to traffic their loved ones or themselves into this country. It's a very dangerous situation, and it's just not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. No country in the world would allow it. We shouldn't either.
Sir, very briefly before I let you go, I'd like to ask you in your capacity as the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee. There have been reports out in the Wall Street Journal and then confirmed by the New York Times about a Russian effort, apparently, to put flammable devices onto airplanes. The reason as to why they may be doing this is unclear, but I'm interested to know what you can tell us about this apparent plot, the potential danger here, and how you think the U.S. should be responding based on what you know in your capacity on the Intelligence Committee.
Well, I won't comment on even articles that are based on things that are supposed to be classified or intelligence, but let me just say generally, and I think this has been reported publicly, and that is we know that the Russians and Vladimir Putin have undertaken sabotage operations in Europe to try to punish countries that are assisting Ukraine. And we know that that's an ongoing threat. And I think that is, in some ways, and I know the campaign has passed, but I want to be clear, I think in some ways this comes down to the fact that they simply do not respect or do not fear what the reaction would be from the Biden administration. And so this is a very serious threat. It's a very serious problem. If there's anything that's explosive on an aircraft, be it cargo or passenger, it's a very serious thing. And something that needs to be dealt with very firmly. But let me just point you back to the fact that we know that the Russians have been involved in attempted sabotage operations throughout Europe as a way of inflicting costs on nations in Europe that are assisting Ukraine. And I think that's an area we need to focus on and that the Trump administration would make a priority, in my opinion.